In this WrestleTalk news, Roman Reigns talks his pre-WWE return ultimatum, Samoa Joe debuts for Ring of Honor, our reviews of SmackDown, Rampage and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos. Acknowledge the subscribe button.
Support WrestleTalk!
Tomorrow we'll see the most biggest, hugest, stupendously historic, stupendous match of all time as Roman Reigns takes on Brock Lesnar in the main event of WrestleMania Night 2 with both the WWE and Universal Championships on the line. It's the first real threat to Roman's 575-day run as champion, but apparently there was a point in 2020 where it could never have happened. Speaking to ESPN, Reigns himself spoke about the WrestleMania main event he was supposed to have 2 years ago, again for the Universal title, but this time against Goldberg at WrestleMania 36. He pulled out of that match on the week of the show, going on an indefinite hiatus from WWE to protect himself and his family in the early days of the pandemic, especially with his recent return from leukemia. We didn't have enough information about COVID-19. We didn't have a proper protocol for protection. I think I made the very smart choice in stepping back and kind of game planning and figuring this thing out and seeing where it went. He described his conversation with Vince McMahon when he informed him he would be pulling out, saying it wasn't a good one. That time out of WWE was important though, as that was when he connected with Paul Heyman, who had just finished his decade-long run as Brock Lesnar's manager. Lesnar, who had just put over McIntyre at WrestleMania 36 too. They developed Reigns' new heel tribal chief persona and pitched it to Vince with this one proviso. Both Reigns and Heyman said they might not have returned to WWE unless they were given permission by WWE CEO Vince McMahon to execute this story in a mostly unscripted fashion. And it's that level of creative freedom that has made it the most consistently stupendous thing in WWE over the last year and a half. Do you think Brock is finally ending Roman's title reign tomorrow? Acknowledge one way or the other in the comments down below. Last night didn't just see the WrestleMania Hall of Fame and WrestleMania Smackdown, it also saw WrestleMania Ring of Honor, where in true Tony Khan style, he's brought a bunch of new wrestlers. At the first pay-per-view under his new ownership, Supercard of Honor 15 saw a promotion-wide reset of champions, roster, and storylines. Tully Blanchard, recently fired by FTR, debuted his new faction of the tag team Gates of Agony and the returning Brian Cage. AEW talent Mercedes Martinez became the interim ROH Women's World Champion. AEW talent FTR won the ROH World Tag Team titles from the Briscoes. It's yet to be seen whether this was a way to write out the controversial Briscoes or just to further their storyline. New Japan's Minoru Suzuki beat Rhett Titus to become the new World TV Champion. AEW's Wheeler Yuta beat Josh Woods to win the Pure Championship, which will surely play into his Blackpool Combat Club storyline on Dynamite, with William Regal seen watching the match. And Jonathan Gresham was declared the undisputed ROH World Champion, beating Bandido in the main event. But it was the post-match that happened after that was most newsworthy. Samoa Joe to AEW and Ring of Honor confirmed. Jay Lethal, who had turned heel earlier in the night on Lee Moriarty and Matt Sydal, jumped Gresham after his match, which brought down Samoa Joe for the save. Joe squared off against Lethal, a man he originally helped train, and Tony Khan tweeted this wasn't just a deal for Ring of Honor. It's official, Samoa Joe is all elite. See you on Wednesday at AEW Dynamite. Are you excited to have Joe back in wrestling on both ROH and AEW? Let me know in the comments while I review WWE Smackdown in about 5 minutes. And it's not just any WWE Smackdown, this is WrestleMania Smackdown, like WrestleMania Backlash or WrestleMania NXT or WrestleMania Night 1. It's helpful they put the WrestleMania name in front of this episode, otherwise I could have mistaken it for literally any other normal SmackDown show. The episode began with a bunch of dudes already in the ring because we're opening on the Giant the Memorial Andrew Royal Battle. There simply isn't enough time on the 2-night WrestleMania to fit in this 10-minute match. So here's the company's entire undercard in one place right now. And United States Champion Finn Balor. Oh god, it's starting to physically pain me what they're doing to you, Finn. At least he got an actual entrance, along with NXT Champion Dolph Ziggler. Both champions lasted until until the final four, but did not win. That honor instead went to Madcap Moss, who threw Balor over the top rope to tell a crap joke and stand next to the Memorial Andrew Giant Battle Royal trophy. At least that's the last time I'll see Balor lose on this show. The real question is, what kind of winner will Moss be? Oh, Joe Rawley kind or? Actually, nobody does anything after winning this trophy. It's just the Mojo Jojo Rawley kind. Saved from the Royal Battle Andrew Giant Memorial, Ricochet then defended his Intercontinental title in a three-way against tag partners Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo. Guess how this match was structured? If you said both heels work together until they argue over who should take the pin, you get 10 points for everybody knew that already. Credit to the three guys, Ricochet's in-ring work and Garza's facial expressions in particular, because they made this match really fun despite the predictable template. Ricochet hit a 630 on Garza, rolled through seamlessly, hit a recoil on Carrillo to retain. WrestleMania will see women's tag team champions Queen Zelina and Carmella defend their belts against not just one, not just two, not just five, but three other teams in a fatal four-way. Sasha Banks and Naomi, Shayna Baszler and Natalya, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. The champions took on Banks and Naomi here to build expectation for that big match where they needed to look strong and lost in about 3 minutes. Super easy, like barely an inconvenience. The best thing on this show, and actually one of the most intriguing actual matches going into WrestleMania, came next. The continuing saga of Vince McMahon's Shane replacement son, Austin Theory, versus commentator Pat McAfee. Theory cruelly tripped McAfee while he was air guitaring to Nakamura's entrance music, a heel spot that was surprisingly affecting, so Pat chased him all the way to Vince McMahon's locker room. Vince came out with Austin sneering behind him and told Pat if he didn't do his job, he'd be fired. Daddy told you off, Pat. This played out in the background of Rick Boogs versus Jimmy Uso, which became a six-man of Boogs, Nakamura and Balor versus the Usos and Theory when Balor and Austin brawled before a commercial break, which resulted in Theory pinning Balor. God damn it, Finn, you're the US champion. There's a perfectly pinnable Rick Boogs right there. McAfee got on the apron afterwards, but Michael Cole talked him down. McAfee is so awesome. He's got that Jerry the King style energy, the announcer wrestler kind, not the alleged kind. Well, you're really invested in him getting his revenge despite not being an active in-ring performer. As much as I'm looking forward to Pat versus Theory, the biggest matches on SmackDown are undoubtedly Lesnar versus Reigns and Flair versus Rousey. Two matches that were built on the WrestleMania Go Home episode, the very last opportunity to sell them directly to your audience, with video packages. Very good video packages, I admit, but Rousey got a pretty bored wrestling training promo, while Charlotte just regurgitated how good she is on the ramp, and Lesnar, Roman and Heyman weren't on the show at all. This was a baffling decision, but it all made sense when you saw that actual main event of Happy Talk. Happy Corbin renamed the sword he had stolen from Drew McIntyre to Euphoria, after Drew had previously called it Angela after his late mother. Corbin then joked, what does Drew's sword and his mother have in common? He lost both of them. That's your WrestleMania Go Home line right there, a your mum joke, who's dead. Drew came down, proved that the steel chair is mightier than the sword, and trashed the set. Then everyone stood exactly where they were for 3 whole minutes, while Cole ran down the entire WrestleMania card, complete with graphics, for the camera to cut back to the ring, where Drew set off a load of pyro and Corbin and Moss acted all scared. What did you think of the WrestleMania Smackdown? Let me know in the comments down below. The positives. Liked how much in-ring wrestling there was on this show, and Pat McAfee is very, very good in his role. The negatives, this was the WrestleMania Go Home show, yet it felt more like a non-pay-per-view episode of Sunday Night Heat. It lacked star power, it lacked title power, Balor got beaten twice, and the angles outside McAfee meant nothing. This is a very, very disappointing 25%. Now over to Tempest with his review of the much better AEW Rampage.
This is the only show I have to review this weekend. Alright. What's going on, WrestleTalk friends and fans? Your 4-time Quizlemania champion Tempest is back with another review of AEW Rampage. in about 3 minutes. So this show kicked off with a tag team match that I've been looking forward to for a long time, that being the rematch between Top Flight and the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks were two of the many Rick Rudes to appear on this show, pulling double duty, also working Supercard of Honor over for Ring of Honor on the same night. Of course, this show was taped, but that doesn't make it any less fun. While the Young Bucks caused a ruckus with FTR over in Ring of Honor, in AEW, this match was absolutely phenomenal. I was kind of surprised that there weren't as many huge dives as you would expect from a match between two of the best high-flying teams in the world. There were still a lot of high-flying moves, don't get me wrong, but I was expecting like huge flipping dives, and we didn't quite get that. Maybe for another rematch down the line. In the end, the Young Bucks were able to toss Dante Martin to the outside and hit a quick BTE trigger on Darius for the win. This was about as good an opener as you will find on Rampage. This gets a 5 out of 5. Someday these two teams are going to have a match on a pay-per-view, and it's going to be one of the best tag team matches of all time. Next, we had a big 6-man tag match as the House of Black took on Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, and Fuego del Sol. The story of this match was that Evil Uno and Stu Grayson are a very well-oiled, experienced tag team, and Fuego del Sol is just an absolute putz. That's a bit harsh, but anytime Fuego tagged in, the House of Black took over, and the running story of the match was that Fuego was a little bit too overzealous for his own good. The House of Black's offense continues to be the best thing about their matches, as each guy has a completely different style, all meshing together and having a completely unique package. I'll say it again, their free-flowing offense reminds me a lot of the early days of the Shield, and that's a very good thing. The finish of this match was awesome as well, as Fuego went for a springboard, only for Malachi Black to hit him with the Black Mass in midair, and then pin him with his knee on his throat. 6-man tag matches on any show are almost always fun, but the House of Black continues to have awesome matches, and at this rate, I really do hope that AEW introduces a trios title real soon, because hey, here's your first champions. And then we got another qualifier match for the Owen Hart Cup, as Jamie Hayter took on Sky Blue. This ended up being the shortest match on the show, with Jamie Hayter picking up the win over Sky Blue, but that doesn't mean this was a bad match, far from it. I'm a big fan of both of these women, and I'm really glad that AEW is having qualifying matches for this tournament, because it gives so many more women another chance to appear on television. The finish of this match was pretty awesome as well, as Jamie Hayter hit a big superplex, followed by a brainbuster, and then a Rainmaker. Yeah, that'd do it. I don't know if they want to go this direction, but if they wanted to line up a Jamie Hayter-Britt Baker match in the Owen Hart Cup tournament, I think that'd be a perfect way to break up this faction. Overall, this was a match between two of my favorite women's stars in AEW, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how far Jamie Hayter will go. This match gets a 4 out of 5. And then we got the main event as Powerhouse Hobbs took on Keith Lee. It's so fun to see just how different matches can be when you have guys allowed to wrestle unique styles. Like, there's nothing in common between this match and the opener, and that's so much fun. I love variety on wrestling shows. Keith Lee and Powerhouse Hobbs, of course, exchanged power spots and wrestled a really tight match until you got towards the finish, as Ricky Starks and the rest of Team Taz went down to the ring to try and cost Keith Lee the match. Another Rick Rude Swerve Strickland ran down to the ring and brawled with Ricky Starks, allowing Powerhouse Hobbs to get a visual pin on Keith Lee following a big spine buster, but it was Keith Lee to hit the Big Bang Catastrophe, and I still hate the name of that move. But that was enough for Keith Lee to get the win, and Team Taz beat down Swerve and Keith Lee, putting Keith Lee through a table to send the show off the air. What a way to go off. This gets a 4 out of 5. A very fun episode of Rampage, a 5 out of 5 episode of Rampage. Watch this show. And that just about wraps it up from me. If you want to hear more about this show and last night's SmackDown, make sure that you go over to WrestleTalk Podcast later on today, where Ollie Davis and Luke Owen will be breaking down both shows in complete detail. And of course, make sure that you're supporting WrestleTalk all weekend long for all of our WrestleMania 38 coverage, and remember that LIW is fine.
In this WrestleTalk news, Randy Orton shoots hard on former NXT talent. Is Cody backing out of his WWE deal? And backstage news on Triple H's emotional reunion with WWE talent, plus loads more.